All right, last one. Let's work on modeling some basic uh fluffy, puffy plush animals. Sorry, I lost the word for a minute. So the assignment again is that you're modeling some sort of plush animal, a complete thing. It doesn't mean with all the extra details of an animal, just more of like it's got to have a head, eyes, a body, some sort of appendages, that sort of thing. Think think Pokemon, stuff like that, or adorable squishy animals. But what we're going to work on tonight is modeling a rubber ducky of your own design. So hopping over to Fusion, again, this is the basic rundown for what we're going to work with tonight. I've added eyes in two different ways. One of these is adding an eye. Hide that sketch. Adding an eye by adding an extra object, or the other side would be modeling in the actual faces, part of the modeling environment. The other examples we'll go through later would be fancy dinosaur, since your plush animal does in fact have to have an accessory of some degree, or super surfing, Thagamizin, Stegosaur. So let's get to an actual model, go from there. First and foremost, save. Example in class ducky. Because, again, right now, seems like Fusion is acting a little unstable. Go from there. You can work from reference images if you like, or you can just freehand, or you can certainly start from an image and go from there. So I'm going to start from a canvas. Where is my pictures, screenshots? Come on, open. That's the dino. There's some duckies. We'll work with that. So that one, I'm going to start from the front. Scale wise, kind of up to you. I didn't actually put a scale requirement in this. Obviously, if it's too small, it's going to be really irritating to work with. And then anything with printability can be scaled to fit the printer space. So however seems reasonable to you, I will model this after the fact. So I am going to move this up so that my starting plane is about in the center here. I highly recommend, if you're trying to keep something much closer to your actual image, find multiple sides. Right now, this here is just from the front. I highly recommend finding an image, reference image from the side as well, possibly also from the top down. But again, it's up to you. I'm going to go to Canvas, right click to calibrate, top to bottom. What seems reasonable? 10 millimeters is tiny. Let's make that at least 100. Giant duck, but not really. Okay, that's going to be my starting point. Image canvas. All right, so I'm going to start with the form environment. Now, however you want to go about this is up to you. I often like to work from the side first, but from the front also works. At least you can work that way. We bring up the origin plane that I had previously hidden, start from there. If I start in the front, makes sense, but actually, now that I've thought about it, I would prefer to start my form from the side. So I'm going to start, and this is going to be modeled by largely two objects to begin with. Other models, you might want to just start from one and expand outward. So what I mean by that is I'm going to start for one with a box. I'm going to go to the side. I'm going to start right now. It is, again, modeled in a center rectangle. So it starts in the middle, building outward. How big do I want that? I don't know. Sure, that kind of sort of works about to there. You can get it close. Remember, we're going to modify it from there. That's the side. Do not hit enter, but instead just left click. If I want to expand this out, we can do just that. That's how I can squish and open. I'm definitely going to have to move this a little bit more because the way I started, it started off that plane, but it didn't start in the center plane of the plane, meaning it didn't start in the object and move equally in all directions. So I do want to move that over. I'll show you in a minute. Remember also, keep this simple to begin with. Add complexity later. So right now, I could totally add more faces. It will make it a lot more detailed, but it will make it so much more difficult to handle from the get-go. Keep it simple, go from there. So right now, actually, that seems pretty reasonable. Just in two side iterations, or two face iterations, top and bottom, all around. Certainly can apply symmetry right from the get-go if you like. Remember here, we're going to cycle through. Nope, not length, not quite width. I want height, so it goes left and right. Yes. That's just the box tool. And that's the default is that a center point rectangle, but you can choose on the initial drop down. It will select either center point or 2 points. So you choose one corner and then you choose the other. Totally up to you. When you're modeling this, you can also select symmetric, and that will snap it to the center of the plane. But that also, because I also already stretched it out, makes it double wide, but no problem. Shrink it back down. Kind of ends up with like a bar of soap form. Cool. That's going to end up being my body. Hit OK. Work from there. Symmetry is already applied. Remember, you could always apply it after the fact by going to the symmetry tool and selecting the faces that you would like to work from. So let's work the body real quick. Again, real simple, as in simple form. Edit form. Let's play with some selections. For this one, I'm going to select by vertex. So I'm going to do a from the left selection box, not necessarily because it's on the left side of the body, just from the left moving right, selects all the things that are only inside of the box. If you select from the right and go left, it selects all the things that that box touches. I don't want that right now. Selected there, because the two sides are mirrored, if I drag this outward, you can see how it stretches outward. We're just going to move that way. Cool. If I want to select all the things, there we go. And then I can move around. But one of the easiest ways to work with this project, with this modeling option, work one dimension at a time when you're getting your initial model started. So right now, like here, I'm going to use a uniform scale. Selecting from the center, the three triangles going outward, scales outward in all directions at once. Cool. That kind of bumped it up to about the size that I want. Nice. Bottom here, let's move this downward a little bit. And like we did on the spoons, I'm going to switch on soft modification. Let's check the area of engagement here. The red, the black to red to white, way big. Let's shrink that down to like 20. All right, that makes it pretty tiny. Looks like I went way too far. Let's split the difference in 50. All right, there we go. If you look carefully, you can see where the red shifts to white. Area of engagement is the darker red to black. Cool. Drag that downward, sorry. You can see how it stretches, but it kind of disperses the movement a bit. Cool. Just a real quick little movement there. And honestly, that's kind of good. Now, granted, when I move to the side, yeah, that's going to be a problem. But right now, it's just kind of a big bulbous bar of soap. Cool. That'll work. Now I want to throw something down for the head. All right. So we're going to start with a sphere. You can use quad ball. Remember that a quad ball is essentially a cube that has been inflated to a sphere. So you can see how the faces break down to more of a, obviously it's not because it's a sphere, but you can see how it translates to like front, back, left, right, top, down, because it's more of curved angles. Sphere is straight up a sphere like a globe, because what I want to do is turn that sphere and make the two poles where my two eyeballs are going to go. So let's start from there, and I'm going to select the side here from the right. Your sphere by default is center outward, so let's put it somewhere in the front and just drag it outward. Sure, close enough. Remember, keep this simple. Let's dial that back to maybe 6 and 6. Keep it simple, add complexity later. I'll apply symmetry after the fact this time, just to remind everybody how that works. Hit OK, like that, but I do need symmetry on this. I want that green line up here. Go to the symmetry tool, select a face on one side, select the same face on the other side, and the green line will appear right smack in the middle. Because if I have selected that one and then more of in the middle, it throws an error. So make sure that you're selecting the same one on either side, green all around. Main thing is also, my intent is to use the bridge tool to join these two. And if I don't have symmetry applied to both, it can, one, throw everything off, but you will have to either add symmetry to one or temporarily remove symmetry from the other. Just remember that. They both have to match. Okay, cool. So that's going to end up being my head. All right. So let's start modeling from the right side now. Well, hang on. First, I'm sorry. I wanted to, well, actually, the duck head's more or less just kind of round. So sure, why not? We'll move it there. Okay, let's move to the side. Now, again, I highly recommend finding a example image. I forgot to, so we're just gonna freehand this. It's a duck, rubber ducky. Cool. Edit form. Again, I have not exited the form environment. I'm still working in the form environment, but again, the problem is it does not record history down here at the bottom. So remember, anything I do, if I intend to be able to step back and forth, you have to finish in this one in sitting. So let's work on the body. Well, I want to work with an edge here. Now let's use vertex. Select all of those. I'm going to drag this upward. Let's start making a little ducktail. Ooh, sorry, totally going to be a little brain twitching tonight. Let's shrink the front. And so much of this is just going to be playing around. Does that look close enough to you? Cool, then it's close enough. I'm going to add the wings after the fact, so let's just keep adding here. I want to add a little bit more to the duck, or to the back here for the tail. So remember that I can select by face, and since I have symmetry on both sides, if I move it outward, but first press and hold Alt, then drag outward, it will extrude. However, what did I forget? To grab the line between those two, and instead I end up with significant duck butt. So Control Z, don't forget to press and hold Shift and also grab that line between. Let's make sure, or if it helps from the side view, do a right selection box. So dragging from the right, so it selects both the face and that edge between. Press and hold Alt. Now it stretches outward, and I do not get duck butt. If you need to avoid that. So rotate a little bit, sure. Maybe tilt it up. There we go. I like that a little bit more. I'll select by vertex. And honestly, the only difference between selecting by vertex or by line or by edge or by face is often enough going to be down to your choice. I'm using free transform by selecting the square in the center. That allows me to freely move around. If I use the arrow, straight up and down, side arrow, straight left and right. Remember, these other tools in between are non-uniform scale, or the center one where when you mouse over the three triangles becomes uniform scale. So that means that if I go to the side view, and since I have all that selected, and I want to bring those together, scale is often a very useful tool to shrink downward. You can see how it grows and shrinks. So a lot of this is going to be try to work on one side at a time, but do orbit around occasionally just to see what's going on. All right. The other thing to occasionally check is that looks a little bit thin. I'm going to hit OK. And just as a check, I'm going to hit finish form. Definitely an error. So that shows me I am going to have to go and correct that. Go to return. I'm going to shift to display mode like we did before. Switch to box mode. Sometimes it's just easier to see, and holy crap, yeah, it is. You can see how these planes have self-intersected. What that means, I probably need to move these two back to the left. Much easier to deal with now. All right. Well, hopefully. Let's go to edit form, and since let's try by edge. Where are my edges? Yeesh, I definitely did a number on this. Let's select those two and see what happens when I move that around. There we go. That brought it back to the area I want. It is now back to being a not self-intersecting form. Let's hit OK. Let's try finish form again. That works. Cool. Problem is it's not clearing out my errors. That keeps happening. All right, cool. So finish form does in fact work. Let's go back in, right click, edit. Cool. Go back in here and let's finish working on this. It's really frustrating that I don't know why it hasn't been clearing lately. It should be automatic. Anyhow, so now that I've fixed that, we can go back to round form for this, make it a little bit easier to see directly what we're doing here. All right. So one of the things I want to do, let's give the ducktail a little sharp edge. So let's go to modify, and I want to show you how to use the crease tool. Crease works on edges only, between vertices, and you can select edge there, and you can see how it suddenly sharpened that whole tail. You want to extend it further, Now it's got more of a flat duck butt. Well, okay, this one's just more of a flat duck tail. But there you go. It works really well in just exactly like it says, creasing a line. I'll show we're going to use it again here in a little bit. The only reason it looks yellow right now is not because it wants to automatically look more ducky. That's just the color designation that it shows when it is in crease mode. Hit OK, goes back. So on that one, I'm going to hide this canvas for a minute. That's just getting obnoxious. What is going on here? Why does this have these round shapes? That's suddenly different. I might have accidentally grabbed something that I didn't realize I had. Let me Control Z here. Yep, when I added that crease, it definitely altered some other stuff. So sometimes it's one of the things that we discussed with T-spline modeling, which this all is, working with the form environment. You can quickly run into stuff that you didn't intend to because it's all linked. You grab one, you pull on a vertex, a point. It's going to drag the geometry along with it. So let's see what happens. Move to there. Okay. When I selected that one, okay. I guess just avoid going to the other one. Okay, cool. All right, leave it sharper there. Back to edit form. A lot, like I said, so much of this is just going to be playing around back and forth, saying what works for you, what doesn't, anything like that. Just be careful not to, or try not to get any self-intersecting forms. All right, let's work from the front now. Yeah, that more or less actually looks about like I want it to. So maybe I expand the front a little bit more, but let's work on the head now. First things first, I want to drag that front out to make it more of a duckbill. Let's see what happens when I use the edge tool and select just there. Dragging outward gets to a really weird shape. But we're going to keep adding some details, work from there. Things like I do want to keep the general roundedness of the head. Excuse me. But I think I might want to instead drag the whole front outward. So what I could do is isolate that by not alter the head too much. I could either add an edge line to break this up, or I could use the extrude form. So let's try both. If I use insert edge, just right there, it's going to add one up here. And yes, you can select that side too, but it's going to continue back and forth. Or I would actually like it to apply insert edge to both sides so you can see how it's above and below the line I'm working on. Use the slider to drag it further or closer to the line you're working at. Cool, that works for me. Close enough. Adds a little complexity. Like I said, you can add complexity as you go. Go to edit form, and if I wanted to extrude it, use by face. Let's select from the right all the things, press and hold Alt, it extrudes outward. Instantly starts becoming a duckbill or a protrusion. If I Control Z and instead just grab by that edge, much sharper. So it's going to be up to you, however you want this to end up being. Let's use the by faces to grab all of those spots, and I'm going to extrude. I liked that effect a little bit better. There we go. Kind of sort of billish. All right. But I definitely want to do some tweaking to the bottom here. Let's try by vertex. Select some of these, kind of drag this downward a little bit. Sure, why not? Occasionally orbit around, see how it's looking. Yeah, that's somewhat duck-like. Cool. All right. If I want to sharpen this, let's hit OK. Let's go back to crease. Let's try creasing the front there. You can see how it starts to sharpen. Not bad. Okay. I can also repeat that, and I want to sharpen around the bill just to see what happens. Not bad. Kind of looks a little weird, but not terrible. We'll see how we go. At this point, feels like it's kind of bogging a little bit. Let's make sure to save. Duckhead. All right, cool. So let's try a quick simple thing here and actually join these two parts together. So what we're going to do is use the bridge tool again. But before, when we used the bridge tool, it was just on a flat surface, a flat plane that we then added use the thicken tool to add dimension. Now we have two three-dimensional bodies that I want to use the bridge tool. The problem with the bridge tool is, or how it works on edges, connects the face edges together. So how that works with two enclosed objects, you have to open those objects up, in this case by deleting some faces. So I do not have the edit form active. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and delete some faces, basically where the neck and head hole will be. If it's hard to see what you're doing, maybe drag this out a little bit or just temporarily hide the parts. Let's relabel that so I can keep that straight. Cool. Let me just hide the body because I want to select it here. And this whole ghost image, it's just because, again, there's no time capture on, or there's no time capture on in the form environment. It just shows you that ghost reference image so you can remember what you were just doing. So I'm just going to select this body opening, or this body, bottom face, and hit delete. Opens it up. Remember, when you delete a square face, it tends to round out the hole. So cool, bonus feature there. Do the same for the top. Unhide the body. Now the problem is look how wide the body is, this face. If I delete that, that makes a huge opening. And the bridge, while it is really effective, they do need to be kind of sort of closer together in similarity in both size, and it has to be the same number of matching faces. So what you can do is either go back and divide this up, but honestly, one of the other options would be maybe just go to edit form, select by edges, double click that whole thing, and I'm just going to use the scale tool to shrink that whole thing. That actually gets it pretty close. So that might work. Again, the other option being, I'm just going to make sure to go through this. If you needed to divide this up, simply go to insert edge. Let's see where that might work. Single. Yep. I want it to do it maybe like right about there. Hit OK. And that's just going to add an edge there. And then I could go in and delete that face. But honestly, the way that that worked out, I kind of liked how it worked the first time. So I'm going to back up and just delete that whole face. Use the edit form by edge selection. Double click to select the whole edge and use the uniform scale tool to shrink that down. Not too bad. Now, it looks like I'm probably going to have to add some faces anyway, but we'll deal with that when we get there. Now, one of the other things is you do need to have a similar side to open there. I'm just rotating this around a little bit so it kind of get to closer to the spot. You need to have enough space between for the bridge tool to work. So let's hit OK. I might have to move this, but let's double check here. On the bottom, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 8 face edges. On the head, I have 1. We don't count the one that meets at a vertex at the edge. It's just the ones that have the longer face edge. So 1, 2, 3. Bummer. That's 6. So I can't have 8 go to 6 for the bridge to work. So we can either try, like, let's select there, just delete an edge, see what happens. That might work. Kind of roundy. And if not, we simply go to add an edge, and then we find a spot that seems reasonable. Let's see, where would more faces go? Oh, wait, did I miscount? That might not be one we have to count. Actually, oh no, that is 3. I misjudged. There's that vertex meets right there, so that might not be a face that counts. Let's try it. Let's go to modify and bridge. We select one side, double click on one side, go to the back of the toolbox, side 2. Doesn't really matter if you select the top or the bottom, same diff in this case. Double click. Let's go to select preview. Actually, that looks like it's going to work. I do definitely want to reduce the number of faces it's going to create. I don't need that many. 2, 1, let's try there. If you wanted to keep this sharp, select the keep creases checkbox, otherwise leave it. Hit OK. That's not bad. I'm actually pretty okay with that. Nice. So more or less, that's kind of sort of the duck form. Obviously we're going to play around with this a bit. We can shrink this. We can move this around now that they're joined. Let me go ahead and save. Neck bridge. Oops, didn't mean for that to be all capitalized. Back to edit form, and let's try selecting all the things. Now let's use vertex. Again, a lot of this is just going to be up to you. Kind of drag this around a little bit, kind of back it up a little bit, making it more actual like duck-like. All right, cool. Not bad, not bad. I'm okay with all of that. That looks like there's going to be a problem. You see how this keeps highlighting in the center? That's because when I stretched all this forward to make the duck bill and added the creases, it kind of pulled on the center points. So let's hit OK, and I'm going to check finish form, see if it gives me an error. Surprisingly, it did not give me an error. All right. I'm actually, yeah, really surprised it didn't. Oh, that's kind of unsettling how the faces end up right there. All right, so let's right click, go back in. So what I wanted to show you is on one point, I wanted to model this whole side and give you a couple of ideas of how you could make more of eye shapes and such. So with this, what I could do is, again, edit form. Again, I'm going to go back and forth with this a lot of times, obviously. We're going to select by face, and I'm going to select all of these, but actually I need to include, because I'm going to extrude this outward, I'm going to need to include the edges. So let's do a from the right selection box, selecting all of those. So it's getting both the faces and edges. I'm going to orbit to the front or just slightly to the side. Press and hold Alt and drag to the side. Oh, that is mildly horrifying. This might turn into more of a praying mantis than a duck. Occasionally, I inadvertently make nightmare fuel with these. All right, so it's a little bump out. Let's hit OK. Oh my God, I might just lean into this. All right, so I do want to kind of try to isolate that horrifying bug eye. Go to modify and crease. I just want to crease around the side here because I want to try to isolate the eye a little bit, or what will become the eye. That'll just make it a little bit sharper. And excuse me. And because symmetry is on, it applies it to both sides. Let's hit OK.
We survived.
So far, we're also making man-made horrors.
That isn't that class on the regular?
Touche.
Um,
Yeah. So all right, so I've gotten to that part. I'm just kind of playing around with this, but honestly, again, you can totally lean into this, make it your own. I'm gonna go back to edit form and sure, why not? Let's see here. Let's select by yeah, sure, like by vertex and select all of those. Let's see what happens when we just warp this. Scale outward. I don't know. Oh God, that's more Princess Leia head buns. Maybe not that. Keep those smaller, but I don't know. Let's drag it around. Oh my God. If you want to try, you can also rotate it slightly so to give it a slightly more forward look. I'm sorry, I'm just really, that's kind of creepy to me. And if that's creepy, that means I'm going to make it a lot worse. And I'm just grabbing extra parts just to model it outward even further. Yeah, exactly. There. No, nothing worse, nothing like a forward-looking duck that totally has predatory feature. All right. You know what? The heck with it. We're just gonna go full tilt on this. Let's drag this whole thing up, and now we're gonna
Okay, hold that.
Oh yeah, sure. The old, well, I'd say long neck duck, but you mean a swan? All right, well, you mean a cobra chicken? There we go. Why not?
Yeah, you can make it like a snake tail. And then it's like a
We can.
chicken
We
snake.
totally can. So again, you could totally just make this however you need to do. Um, Now, granted, one of the things we can do is actually continue to extrude the shape out even further. Again, this ghost image is simply referring to what was just there. The highlighted error area is just simply not disappearing, so we'll deal with that later. But one of the things you could do, which we're going to get into more of next time, but you can actually form the wings or such directly from this. What I mean by that is select, let's say select by face, and you can actually start to isolate elements, and actually by using say like the alt extrude, you could start modeling this outward and create the wings as you go. So all of your, or like the basic entire form could be created simply by continuing to modify the existing body. But I want to show you how to work a different way this time, for this time. So let's leave that for right there. Super good. Hit OK. If it'll let me. Oh, I didn't change anything. Oh, I know what I also wanted to show. One other thing is, you know what? Heck with it. I want to add a crest to this. So ways you can continue to modify. I want to drag this outward. So again, back to the edit form. I'm going to use the center edge and drag a crest outward. So to do this, if I just drug this outward, it's going to stretch the whole thing. So instead, let's try either using the scale tool, which then brings that outward in all directions, but it doesn't really modify it as much as far as it kind of drags everything with it. So you could again try to use the crease tool, but I think that's going to throw me off. So what I should instead do is deselect, or I cancel the edit form, and instead I'm going to use insert edge. Go to both, and you see how I can now add an edge right around there. When I do that, add some complexity, cool. But now if I go to edit form, do what I just did, select those form, select that edge again, and now use the scale tool. It isolates it a lot better because you have the constraint of that additional edge line. So play around with those things. If you're trying to make an edge, like a form, sharper, excellent way is add an edge line on either side, or either one or both sides of that form. So you can certainly continue to play with that, but that's an excellent way of adding features. Heck yeah, make it a super rockin' dino duck. This is quickly turning into a pterodactyl. Super good. All right. Right, there we go. They're all monsters anyway. All right. Now one issue is, do look closely here. Um, by doing that, it created a deep groove in the back here. If you want to adjust that, you just have to go back in, edit form, again, playing with that line tool. In this case, we might have to just kind of either drag that outward a little bit, or let's try the scale tool, shrink it a little bit, and that just kind of allows things to go back outward. Again, if you need to switch display modes to square mode, it will make it a lot easier to see more complex shapes. Okay, I think I'm fine with that. Let's go try finish form. No errors. Hot dang. All right. Duck form. Done. Now what I want to do is add those wings. So if you just want to make little bump outs, easiest way to do that is we're going to use sketch and emboss. Used to, we had to do some really touch and go workarounds, but luckily the emboss tool works significantly better now, so we should be able to work from that. So I'm going to use sketch as going back to our normal tools from the side, and I'm going to use a fit point spline. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, you do need to keep this a little simple. And what I mean by that is, don't try and make a bunch of zigzags and such, because often enough, if I tried to make this, the sharp turns will be more difficult to work with. It won't actually create the full form that I want. So let me go in here and just delete these points. And then I'll just edit from there. Yep, that seems pretty reasonable. If I want to grab the handlebars and tweak this a little bit, that can work. We'll see if I would run into any errors. But that's pretty much it. All right, cool. That works. I like it. Finish sketch. Now, hopefully this will work. I might have to go back and readjust this form just to give the sides a little bit less of that sharp increase. So now I'm going to go to Emboss, select my sketch profile. That's that one. Faces, the outside faces. Now the problem is, look what happens is even though I'm selecting everything, it only appears on one side. That's okay. Even though it's selected all the things, like it's selecting the entire object, I did choose it from this side. And even though it doesn't highlight, it doesn't give you any actual indication of that's what's going to happen. Often enough, if I emboss from one side, I can repeat the emboss and do the same thing on the other side simply by selecting the faces. So it's selecting the entire body, but I'm choosing this side. That usually will correct the issue, or that usually will allow you to work the tool. So, all right, emboss from this side. I don't really like using the slider because it can very quickly overpower and your computer. So I definitely recommend doing this by hand or by numeric input. But also, I accidentally grabbed the left to right slider instead of straight out. So let's go back to 0 on that one. And let's just say more of a 5 millimeter emboss. Let the computer catch up. Hopefully it doesn't freeze out. Like I said, as we're working with more complex shapes, definitely save often. Let's see, did it finish? Yes. Now, looking from the front, remind you, this is also the issue with using emboss. It maintains the curvature of the shape, but emboss is an offset. It is basically still using offset line. So it matches that profile and goes outward from every direction related to that. So it's perpendicular to the curvature, which means if it's curved, it's going to follow that curvature outward in all directions. So you end up with these weird undercuts. You can usually correct them by using fillet tools if they're not too complex. So where I drew the feather lines, that would have really thrown off. Maybe not the emboss, but I would not be able to apply fillets. So let's use that for there. Hit OK. And something I realize I haven't done. Let me shift to auto color mode. Maybe you can see what I'm doing a little bit more clearly. All right. So let's repeat the emboss. I need to unhide that sketch. There we are. Select the sketch. Orbit to the other side. Select by faces. To that side. Even though it selects the entire body, because I chose that side, now the emboss is applying appropriately from that side. It's very strange that it doesn't actually highlight that it's doing that. Just know that sometimes you just simply have to actually choose the faces from the other side, regardless of how much it's highlighting. So cool, it saved my features, as in depth, 5 millimeter emboss. Awesome. Hit OK. Okay. Now I can go back and hide that sketch a little less problem, or a little easier to deal with. Well, I'm going to save here. Emboss wings. Like I said, save often. All right, let's use the fillet tool on the edge line here. See what we get to. Actually, I'm going to try from here, selecting all the way around. What you'll run into often enough is because these face lines, these edges get generated because of the vertices based off of that original spline. Sometimes I have to go through and just select all these lines all the way around. It gets tedious. That's the main thing. Okay, that looks like it should work. Let's find out. Again, I definitely recommend when we get to this stage not to use the slider tool, but do this by numeric input. It was a 5 millimeter emboss, so let's try 2. Error already. Dang it. Did I not select that? Don't know. looks like I forgot to select something. There we go. I just simply forgot to select that one little chunk. So always it will highlight the error, zoom in and check. I just forgot to select that bit. Awesome. It's actually working. Doesn't always happen that way. Cool. So that means that it'll probably let me continue doing this all around. So I usually wouldn't want to do the fillets all individually, but just so I can isolate things, I'm going to. Hit OK. I'm going to right click to repeat fillet. Now I'm going to do the outside edge. Now it's letting me select the whole face up top. So cool. I'm going to try a 2mm fillet again. So I should still be left with a 1mm break between. Error, crud, same spot. Problem is I'm selecting by everything. So let's try, let's try deselecting tangent chain. Not doing anything. Crapola. All right, let's try by selecting the edges only. Maybe that'll help me. Oh, and this is what I meant by it just can get real tedious. So with those spline lines, try to simplify them and you'll end up with fewer edge breaks. Ugh. All right, that looks like all the things. Let's try again. 2mm. Is it the same error or a new error? All right, looks like the same error. All right, let's try by 1. Did I forget that down there, or is it giving me or did I just freeze the computer? Hey, all right, the 1mm worked. So we can try stretching that a little bit. If 1 worked, let's try 1.5. See if we get to where we want to go. Nope. All right, still the same error. Let's stay at 1. So the one benefit to breaking up the fillet tools, where normally I would try to do as many fillet operations in one tool as I can just to simplify things. If you're running into errors with something like this, all right. So it looks like the 1mm fillet on the outside is as much as I can push. I can try, go back to the first one, edit feature. Let's try 2.5. Make sure you don't accidentally hit 25. Rethinkify. All right, not bad. Let's try 3. Nope, 3 was too much. All right, 2.5 might have been it. All right, there we go. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Cool. All right. So that worked. We'll do the other side later. Now I want to deal with some of the other stuff. What I mean by is let's add some color to my, well, actually, that's a pretty cool looking duck monster. Anyhow, we'll save fillets. All right. So now at this stage, with what we got going, I want to apply some colors. So shift in, go back to color mode. Let's switch to appearance. Hit OK. Again, if this is plush, you can make this painted, whatever have you. Cool. Let's start with, we'll go with paint. There's some pretty cool like metallic flakes and stuff like that. Just make sure you just use the little download symbol and you can drag them in. You don't have to use metallic flake. I just like using these. So first, let's drag and drop to the whole thing. Sure, yellow duck. But, oh, that's pretty cool. Look how the coloration stretches across. Nice. Color map really does some cool stuff on that. But I want to add some color, like just to the crest. So at the top of my appearance box, the default is applying appearance to the entire body or component, or by faces. So now I can select, luckily this is broken up to a single face, select that whole thing, and let's drag and drop, say this over that one. Applies only to that part. Cool, it actually works at the moment. But other things of like, say I now want to apply color to just the beak. Well, I can drag and drop, and I have to do this face at a time. Or hopefully I can select, and see, in all the select all the way around, selected everything. So unfortunately, often enough, you do actually have to select individually. So this gets real tedious. Again, Let's go from there. Looks like I was able to select some. You can see the blue outline. Let's see if, I think it's going to try and apply to everything. Yep. So see when I mouse over, the blue outline is still applied all around the form. Let's hit escape. And I had to get out of the tool entirely to clear the selection, but let's try from there. Unfortunately, when you bring it back up, don't forget that it does default back to by bodies. So switch back to the by faces. Now let's go in and select just the bill area. All right. Drag and drop. Cool. Just onto there. Not bad. Now, the problem here is, what if I want to apply that to stretch the beak out, make it a little bit more, something like that? This is where you can start adding features by using things like, obviously you can go back into the edit form, yada, 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 but I've done so much, I've modified it with the wings and such, you might end up with just kind of a nightmare of dealing with untangling lines. So one of the easier ways is using split face. That's split body. I don't want to divide it up. Just using split face. So this is kind of a way of doing the same thing we did in the form environment outside. So what I'm going to do, first I need a sketch reference. So start a sketch. I'm going to start on the XZ plane, so it bisects the form. And I'm just going to draw fit point spline somewhere above, comes down through, drags outward, and let's just drag it out that way. Cool, that's it. That's all I need right there. Hit finish sketch. So now, see, this line is now floating in the middle. Let's go to modify, split face. Faces to split would be that one, that one, that one, that one. But symmetry is no longer applied because we're outside of the form workspace, so make sure you get the other side. My splitting tool, select that line. Now it's going to extend infinite. Just deselect the extend splitting tool. There we go. Keeps it isolated. Hit OK. Now it adds that line right there. So now I could bring up the appearance tool again, by faces, select these individually. I'm holding the select button down, or sorry, shift button down, so I can select multiple things. Now I can release, drag and drop. Cool. Adds to there. Other things you can do, now that I've added this line outside of the form environment, like I showed before on the dinosaur, these little ridges around there, that is the pipe tool after using the split body, or split face, sorry. So I can make use of this edge line that I've created. Use the pipe tool, start selecting lines. The default is going to be to cut. I don't want to do that. Let's go to join. Now, one problem is it also sometimes will not continue. Sometimes it will allow you to be able to do this whole operation with one pipe tool or fewer if you deselect chain selection. Let's deselect that line. See if it lets me do more. Unfortunately, no. Well, that is just irritating. All right, so it's a 1 millimeter setup. Section size, okay. Right click to repeat. See if it's it's that's going to make me do this all individually. I'm going to have like 30 pipe tools going. Yes, continue. From the other side. Nope, not letting me do it. Oh, what just happened there? Not A1. Repeat, repeat. Yeah, this, like I said, program is not meant to do a lot of what we're going to be forcing it to do here. Okay, so now that's just an additional feature, little ridge line. I can now go select, and let's give it a little gray outline. Cool. Select by faces, press and hold shift as I move my way around. Oops. Let's see if I just selected something I did not mean to. Yep, it selected the crest. Dang it. Definitely gets irritating. If you select something you don't mean to, and you go to a drag and drop your appearance down to it, it will warn you that it's about to change the appearance. At least you get the warning there. Oh, I didn't mean to use that one. I want to use where that gray would go. There you go. So there we go. All right. Now it's got a little outline. What about opening up the mouth if I wanted to give it like an actual like build or something? Well, I could have done some of that in the form environment. One of the other tools I could use is the split body. Sorry, split body, not the split face. So let's just save that type tool. And I'm gonna do another sketch back to the right smack in between. And in this case, I'm going to draw just a line, something like, let's see how far back I want to make this go. There and to there. Cool. All right. Good enough. Same deal. This time we're going to use the split body tool. Body's a split, the whole thing. Splitting tool, that line. The split thing is happening way out, so just uncheck that box right there. Now watch what happens. I currently just have one body. Let's hit OK. Chops it off, makes two. So now I can just hide that one. So it's an easy way to cut into if you're trying to make some smaller, thinner features. That works really well. Do be aware that, like, if I wanted to use like the fillet tool, sometimes this will work in there, sometimes not so much. Let's try it. I don't know if this will let me. Let's say like a 1mm fillet. Ooh, probably too big. Let's try like 0.5. Keep making it smaller. I'm going to keep getting errors. Let's try 0.1. Hey, 0.1 works. That's almost unnoticeable. Apparently only 0.1 works. So you can still apply fillets. There you go. Now it's just going to apply the basic body color there. So again, we'll go in. I don't know. Let's use, yeah, I've just been using these so we can, whichever. Let's just drag and drop into there. Same thing inside the body. If you're having difficulty, select it first and then drag and drop. Cool. All right. So those are just some simple basic ways. Obviously, one of the other things would be I do want to add to the eyes. Would want to make the little eyeballs, but one issue is definitely going to be that I have difficulty getting to the straight onto the eye because I made them curved like this. Now, obviously, I can apply like white to the face or just to the eye itself. But if I wanted to make pupils or something on this, this would make it more difficult. That's why I definitely would probably want to make these either in the original form environment, or we can try splitting this face up. Let's see what we can do with this. Now, if I want to make them just like looking like they're straight on or something, I could probably still do one more sketch. This gets a little irritating. And something like, let's just try what happens with a center point circle somewhere around there-ish. Hit OK. So that looks like it's floating in the middle pretty well. Hit all right, or hit OK, not all right. And let's see here. I can do a split face again. Let's try to do both faces at once. That way I can just streamline this a little bit. The cutting tool, that circle, laser through the eyes. Let's hit OK. All right, that actually works pretty well. So in this case, we can select just those faces. Oops. See, I was about to actually do this by whole bodies. Switch back to the by faces. There we are. And there we go. That is just creepy. I don't know. Let's give it something else. I'll deal with that later. There we go. Now, one of the benefits also of using the split face is you can actually still use the things like the offset face, which is one of the old workarounds for using the emboss that we can now do. So I could select just that face and I could try dragging this outward, but it's going to work the same way. You can see how, as it projects out, or as it moves further away it moves, it's going to move further out in space. So obviously that's going to cause issues, but that is a thing you could do sometimes. And what I mean by sometimes, if the topography of your surface is too complex, like say I was trying to use this for the wing, sometimes it'll work, sometimes not so much. The emboss tool works really nicely, but this is just a way you can work the opposite way. Meaning The first time I did the sketch and used the emboss tool. This time I used the sketch and used the split face, and I was able to take that edge, what is defined by that edge line, and use the offset face to drag it outward. But that's just the way you can work. So we'll hit OK. Now it definitely has a little bit of a bug eye. Oh, looks like I got an error anyway. Compute failed. So all right, ignore it. Leave me alone. Okay, I got it. Enough. Jeez. Okay, so there is my heavily modified duck with a super awesome crest, and definitely will haunt your nightmares. You're welcome. So we'll start. So we'll do some more advanced stuffs next time, but this is just the basics on getting some stuff, getting some modeling done for making a basic plush kind of animal. There we go. Play around. Try not to get too lost. Remember that the changing display mode can very easily help you find your way back out.